Good evening and welcome to this week's episode of Sunday Night Live, your favorite automotive show where we talk about all things automotive. And we bring in the experts to share what they know and some of the secrets that they know that'll help you become more profitable and more efficient. Nobody knows everything, and it's often said you don't know what you don't know. The computer knows what it doesn't know. And that's why I'm excited to have Greg Cooper from SOCIALMININGai with us again. We got into a show a couple of weeks ago. There was so much to cover that I don't think we covered half of it. And I said, you know what? To not miss any of the important elements, you got to come back and do kind of a part two of the show because there's just so much great content out there. So Greg, for those few people that might not know who you are, why don't you tell us a little bit about you and how you got here?
All right. Yeah. So thanks again, Paul, for having me back. It was just 2 Sundays ago. And so to fit me in again, I really appreciate it. I think it makes sense to try to get back to back so that we can get back on the topic of AI and automotive and obviously specifically social mining. But for those of you that missed the first show 2 weeks ago, shame on you. But glad you're here this time around. And I think it'll be worth your while. So a little bit about me. I'll kind of recap what I had already mentioned before. Very passionate about the automotive space, specifically because what it's provided for me as, I would say, a professional and for my family. And so I was given an opportunity as a young man to work for a small, tiny company called Dealer Socket. At the time I started, it was fairly small, and was there for about 11 years almost, and kind of just rose through the ranks, just like a lot of, it's pretty similar to a lot of GMs, right? When you hear their stories, that's what I love about the automotive space. When you hear a lot of GM stories, most of them aren't the PhD where Papa had a dealer, where that's great if they did, but a lot of the GMs are just grit, hardworking guys that started selling cars, maybe even started washing cars at a young age, right? And they just worked through the ranks. It's no different on the vendor side in my experience, right? Like we're actually part of the same world. While, those that are working at the dealership definitely have, I would say, a more difficult road warrior mentality. I mean, those guys, I don't know how they do it and still have a wife and kids. But at the same time, automotive simply provides a hardworking individual a road to climb or a ladder to climb, a road to run on, and pursue one day, a financial position that pays off based on the work ethic that they've put forward, right? You reap what you sow, just like a farmer. That's why I love the automotive space. Like I know that without that, I wouldn't be where I am today. That's certainly for sure. To be a CEO and founder of technology like we've got is very humbling, considering the background and where I came from and where I started at Dealer Socket. So, working at Dealer Socket, like I said on the last show, just gave me all the opportunities to work with the right people, both on the vendor side and dealers, right? Like at one point we had 7 out of the 10 largest automotive groups on Dealer Socket CRM or a Dealer Socket product in general. And I happened to work with majority of those groups or rub shoulders with them. So I learned a lot about what they were doing and what made them successful. And I was also able to teach them a lot of what to do and what not to do and how they might be able to make certain processes better or certain things better within their organization. So that has given me the wherewithal and the knowledge to understand the automotive space intimately, both from a dealer's perspective and a vendor's perspective, understand what's missing and what is really frustrating for our end users. And I've come to realize that our end users are really not the dealer. For the first 10 years in the space, that's all I had thought, right? And I think most vendors still consider the end user being the dealer and their salespeople. That's not the case. And if it is, you should start thinking about it differently. The end user should be the person that's buying or selling the car. And, especially for vendors, in my opinion, because that's the only way we're going to be able to really help dealerships and dealer groups fight the good fight against Vroom and Carvana and soon to be Google. They're coming.
Yeah. And Apple.
And I know they're coming. And so the better we can make the user experience. Look at Apple, right? The only reason they've taken the world by storm is because the user experience and the culture that they've created. They're coming to the automotive space, and trust me, they're coming guns blazing. There's a reason why they're coming. And they're coming because they recognize the need for a good user experience.
Correct.
And so if dealers can understand, okay, things are going to change. Yes, they started changing 10 years ago. Some dealers actually recognize that, realize that. Is there an echo?
No.
Some dealers recognize that, made some changes that they needed to, and are continuing to evolve. But the vendors that capitalize on understanding that dealerships need help to make that culture shift, dealerships need technology to make that user experience as good as Apple, if not better. They'll capitalize and be able to help dealerships not only stay in business, but thrive against Apple. Because that's the only reason why, a big company, big organization like that would come to the space in the first place. And it's because of a user experience and being able to provide a need, right? And there's definitely a need there. A lot of people feel like buying a car is like going to the dentist, and it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be that way.
Hold on a second. Dan Hamilton said there's a big echo. Is anybody else hearing an echo? Because I don't hear an echo on
Thanks,
my
Dan.
end. Fine. And then while we're at it, Mark Williamson says, hello all. Ron Usher, hi Greg and Paul again.
Ron.
So I'm not sure what the
does everybody hear the echo? I started hearing an echo. I'm not hearing it now.
Hopefully it's cured, whatever it is. As my good friend David Kokenauer says, it's technology. 70% of the time it works, 30% of the time you deal with it.
No. It's user. It's user error. Trust me, it's always user error.
If I could bounce off a couple of things you said, the road warrior life is a hard one. Yeah. I've worked for a couple of large companies in the road warrior space. You leave your house early Monday morning, and you don't get home until Friday late afternoon or evening, depending on where you are. Mark says no echo here. Linda Hansen says yes, but not consistently. Ron says no. Dan Hamilton says Greg seems to be feeding back through Paul's computer.
So maybe when I'm talking, you just go on mute.
Maybe.
That should work.
We could try that. So the road warrior life is a difficult one. You can't plan stuff during the week because you don't know, you're not going to be home during the week, and you can't really plan stuff for Friday nights because you don't know if you're out in Pennsylvania somewhere and there's traffic and you've got a late afternoon meeting, you've got to take the meeting when it is. So you're not going to make it home for Friday. And then of course, Saturday and Sunday, you're working on recapping what you did and planning for the following week. So when I got lured into this, I was told, oh yeah, it's a Monday through Friday job, all holidays off. Yeah, right. It's not. But it's opened up a whole new world for me to be able to see holistically every single part of the dealership, both from an in-store standpoint, because I've spent 41 years in the business, most of it in store, in sales and service. And I was one of the early adopters to the internet, shipping cars all over the country, overseas. So it really gives you a good perspective on it. But it is a very, very difficult life. one day I got up, my wife and I were talking on the weekend, and we were talking about the show we used to watch. And all of a sudden it dawned on me, and it just hit me like a ton of bricks. That was 5 years ago that we watched that show. But it seemed like yesterday, because when you're living out of a suitcase, you're in a different city, in a different state every day, mostly by car, sometimes by plane, sometimes by train, car service. Yeah, it's a hard life, but it's a great experience. So if you haven't done it, it's worthwhile to do it for a few years just to get a better appreciation for what this business is all about. Oh, and Michael Weldon says, good evening, no echo here. Orlando Spencer says, hey, Paul. So, and you don't have your microphone muted. So hopefully whatever it was went away.
I think, I think it's only when I'm talking, maybe people are hearing it through your computer. So, but yeah, maybe it's done. So.
All right, so now to kind of kick it off and to really put it smack dab in your face, okay? What's more powerful than social media today? Any kind of social media. What do you think, Greg?
I don't think nothing.
So everybody talks about everything, sometimes more than they should. There's a lot of TMI out there. But if you own a business, imagine if you could listen in on every single conversation from every single person in social media that wants to buy the product or service that you sell. How powerful is that?
So I think you put it perfectly. And I know we were touching on this on the last meeting. So kind of bringing everybody back up to speed. I did speak with a gentleman even since last week. His name is Neil Sahota, and he co-chairs for the UN on AI, and did a presentation at COP26 just a week or two ago. And he went to it, did a presentation on AI and how it can help with climate change. And I was lucky enough, he's done a TED Talks before, done Hotboxing with Mike Tyson, the podcast. So he's really well known in this space, helped with IBM Watson. So he found out what we were doing and got so excited. And after meeting me, he said that he thought that I had the will to carry this on, but he said that we're after the Holy Grail. That's how he put it. And to do exactly what you just said, big companies like Facebook and Google, they want to be able to do it. But the way he put it was, there's a saying, good enough. When you own the monopoly of advertising on that platform that large, you're good enough. You don't need to carry that torch. So we are after something that is big. And we have a patent already on purchase intent, finding that on social media the way that we do. And then using that to advertise. And so we can do exactly that. And I think one thing that we touched on just a week ago or so was the fact that listening in, the first place to listen isn't actually on the phone. Those people only start conversing. People only start verbalizing their thoughts, right? And their thoughts are premeditated based on knowledge. And I've actually read a lot about this. The knowledge that they receive, they either read or hear. And so most of the time, I think it's like a 95% of the time, people are not verbalizing a conversation for the first time. They're thinking it, right? Obviously, that's 100% of the time they think about it first. But before they start talking about it to like a friend or family or spouse or asking questions on it, they first research on it because they have to know what questions to ask.
Right.
And the place that they're going to research is online. Now, we say social mining for a reason, right? You have Facebook, you have Twitter, you have Reddit, you have online forums, you have chat, all sorts of different sources that people don't know about, like Bimmer Post. I'll bet a lot of people listening to this right now have never heard of Bimmer Post, but there's hundreds of thousands of people on Bimmer Post asking, what car they should buy.
Right.
And there's tens of thousands of different channels on Bimmer Post and forums and things like it. So nobody has the resources, not even a Google or Facebook, has the resources to have somebody sit down and I would say bring all of those sources together, read every single post, over 200 million posts a day, and then find a business that would want that particular post. Only technology can help you filter all that. And so that's what we do. Go ahead.
And to put it into perspective, okay, I know I've been in stores, and probably most of you out there can identify with this, that how many times you hear, the sales manager comes in and says, hey, I want you to go on Craigslist and look for people selling their car. Okay. That was, kind of the precursor to even thinking about this, where, you'd look at a few listings and then you'd get sidetracked or distracted and you go off and do something else. So the net result is you only did a few at best, maybe, until this AI stuff came into the picture. And you know what AI means to me?
What?
In my business, which is our business, AI, I have a whole new acronym for that.
Tell me.
Automotive intelligence.
Ooh, I like it. I in fact trademarked that already. So just kidding.
That's what it means, for real. That is
good.
exactly what it means, because that's our business.
I think, what's funny? A lot of AI companies think the same thing, but that are selling to dealers, they say AI and they think it means automotive intelligence. It doesn't. But I totally understand where you're going with it. It's an overused term. We actually use real natural language processing AI in our application. So the AI is incredibly robust, far more than even I understand or ever could. But
talk about the natural language thing a little bit.
Yeah. So I think we talked about that on the last show. I'll kind of be brief on it if that's okay. But natural language processing, right? There's machine learning, there's deep learning, there's natural language understanding, right? And there's artificial intelligence, there's neural networks. There's so many different ways to skin a cat when it comes to having a computer start learning something and then spit something out and answer, right? And so there's different intents. Now, most AI companies, NLP stands for natural language processing, and it is by far the best AI to use to date. I say to date for a reason, because in a year from now, AI is going to be 10 years ahead, right?
Always changing.
Yeah, always changing. So, I mean, if you think everybody knows technology is always changing, but when AI is in the mix, it changes 10 times faster. So that's why a lot of companies have a really hard time ever catching up to a company that actually is truly doing AI, because, you have to have some pretty incredible stuff to catch up. So natural language processing stands for just that. I mean, in the automotive space, we have different terms that we use, right? Like RV, MF, money factor, residual value, lease. Leasing means something specific, right? Lease rates and residuals, LR and R. I mean, op codes, phone up, fresh up, like all these things are terms that are used specifically in the automotive world. In real estate, you don't hear of a fresh up, but you have a prospect. You know what I mean? And in real estate, you don't hear MF or RV or LR and R. So the reason why we had to be industry agnostic is because we didn't want to spit out an if-then bot. And most AI companies that are selling to dealers today aren't true AI. They're an if-then standard protocol. If someone says this, then say that. That conversation can go one of two ways, if and then, right? With NLP, you can go a million different ways. And that's why it takes so much data and a lot of networking, a lot of neural networks to learn enough for it to start speaking intelligently or understanding intent, not just, hey, this post had the word lease in it, so we know it's somebody wanting to lease a car. That's actually not always true. And so I say this because the intent is what we are after. We're not after a keyword. It's much easier to filter through posts looking for keywords. I mean, we could have had that on day one where we just say, okay, here, Mr. Dealer, type in keywords and we'll help you find those posts, right? But those posts always did not result into the intent of buying a car, servicing a car. And go ahead.
Okay, and I guess the best way to really illustrate that point is we've become such a global world. Okay, I have friends all over the country. I have friends all over the world. I have some of my friends live in Russia. Now, the best way to relay what Greg is talking about is when you communicate with someone else using Google Translate, or they communicate to you using Google Translate. You think that you're conveying the message, yeah, but you're really not. Sometimes you get a message from them in English that the syntax, the verbiage, none of that is exactly aligned with what your understanding is as part of that conversation. And that's kind of what you're talking about here with specific language programming.
Yes, it is, especially with finding intent behind a post. So even when you think beyond that, most AI companies that are doing any kind of NLU, natural language understanding, they're just converting audio to text. Everything is converted into a text for a computer. And so that's what we do. Like, we look at text and then we understand what somebody is actually meaning to say with that text. And we're looking for specific intent, not just, oh, this person's mad, or not sentiment analysis. That's another very overused fact. Like, a lot of AI companies will be like, oh, we can understand intent. No, you understand the sentiment. So you understand if somebody's upset, why they put all caps and are saying F off, trying to be very, very basic. I understand that, didn't need a computer to tell me so. But, and that's the other way, that's the other place we're going to be taking social mining AI is I 100% understand more than ever, because we look at so many posts, that people no longer trust Google reviews and Yelp and Dealer Rater reviews to go to say, hey, I believe enough in a business to go give them an opportunity for my business. People are to Facebook, right? They're taking to their community groups. Facebook community groups is a big one. Reddit, Twitter. People are going to Twitter and tweeting about an experience that they had at a dealership. Dealers don't know this. Dealers don't have the resources or manpower to actually find it. They certainly don't have a way to respond to it. Well, now they do. We can tell a dealer anytime their name ever gets mentioned online, as long as it's in a repository that we're collecting, which is over 30,000 sources. So if we're not scraping it, we're constantly adding to our repository. So we continue to add to our library of content. But chances are, if your name is ever mentioned online, we have found it and we can easily show you. But online, like reviews in general, if you want to really understand what your community thinks about you as a business, the best way for you to truly understand that is through sentiment analysis, natural language processing, and letting us actually go find it, right? Not these 4-star reviews where, somebody at the dealership is sending somebody that's sitting in the dealership a review link because they know they had a great experience. People are caught on. They understand majority of the time those reviews are bought off. And so to speak. Yeah, they're gamed. So now people don't trust it as much. So a lot of weight is discredited, and a lot of dealers are still giving so much value to Google reviews. Just like buying cars from the public is so important, so is understanding your brand and your reputation and what your community is saying about you. And you can't find that out with Google reviews. There's a reason why a lot of dealerships, right, they have 4 or 5-star reviews, majority, right? And it's because a lot of people they don't take the time to complain as much because you're making it easy for the people that had a good experience to talk about it. And there's technology for you to do that with. In fact, Social Mining AI can easily do similarly what Podium does, where they just send a text to somebody that did business with the dealership. Here, write a review, right? But we want to take it so much further. We want to actually tell that dealership, you were mentioned on Twitter, and there were 30 other people that chimed in your area, in your town, saying similar experiences. Or we want to look at all your Google reviews from the last 15 years and tell you, is there a common theme? Is Vince, the service technician, the reason why you're getting 2-star reviews? We can tell you that. So some really cool stuff that AI and NLP can be used for to help you with your reputation. So, that's we absolutely plan on doing social listening. It'll be a product within our arsenal, and it's in our roadmap, and we're already beta testing a lot of it, which is why I know enough about it to know that Google reviews is going to eventually, I won't say it's a mute point, but people just don't trust it as much. So it'll be very valuable for a dealer to understand when and where they're talked about and give them the resources to respond to it in that exact place. Because not only do we scrape it from there, we give you the credentials and the ability to log in and actually post directly on the same places that people and platforms that people are talking about you.
Now, to comment, you threw out the word community before, and community is extremely, extremely powerful in an online world today. Okay, where it used to be your home neighborhood, where you had the block parties and you used to play with the kids on the block. When I was growing up, that whole world seems to have evolved somewhat, where people aren't as social in real life as we used to be. Okay. Yeah. And online communities are extremely, extremely strong. Right. Because there's a huge trust factor in an online community. Now, to your point about the Google reviews, yes, the gaming of the Google reviews has been in play for many years, probably a decade. Okay. Yeah. And people see through that. So now, if you are counting on your reputation being represented by what is online on Google, which is your good customers, you're missing an important conversation. And the conversation you're missing are those conversations that are being had behind the scenes in real communities where people value each other's opinions on Twitter, on Facebook, and so many of these other platforms where a lot of people haven't even heard of.
Yeah, you bet this. Any HOA in your community has a Facebook page. Okay. And that Facebook page is where people go to ask where they should go buy their next Audi, where they should go buy their next Ford. That's just where they go. And even when my wife and I were getting ready to move, first place that we posted anything on the fact that we were going to sell our home before talking to a realtor or anything like that, Facebook community group. And then we looked at community groups in the area that we wanted to go look for a home. And so the same is true about just about any type of business or anything. Are we still live? I think we got paused here. Okay.
Yeah, no, you're buffering a little bit on the video, but the audio is still fine.
All right, I'll keep going. So to continue on that thread, the community groups is a massive place where people do trust their neighbors still. But you're right, they don't tend to get out in hordes anymore, especially since COVID. But they still trust their neighbors, right? And there's still that commonality. But that leads us to our next point, Paul. And so you had mentioned how people just they don't have that synergy like they used to. They don't get out and about. Well, phone calls and audio like this type of meeting is in the Stone Ages for a lot of young people. Today, the new form of communication is text. That just it's true. So many CRMs are built around email automation. right? I don't know a CRM that is built around text automation. And I worked at one for 11 years. And so part of our platform is making it easy to communicate, right? So if a dealership will run this with me and try to understand, if you're giving somebody the ability to chat with you from your website, a lot of people don't like chat. Why? It's in their brain that they're going to wait. They're not going to get somebody intelligent on the other line, or maybe somebody that's not even at the dealership to help them and respond to them, which is a lot of
know the store or the people in it.
Yes. And so what we've done is we've actually allowed dealers to put a widget on their website saying text to chat. Okay. If you don't get as many, that's fine, because these are going to convert at a much better rate. So these people are willing to actually communicate with you. Great. That's what you guys want, right? You want real conversations. You don't want fluff. So we give them the ability to say text to chat. We've built, when I think about chatting, and then you now understand that we're talking about finding people on Reddit, on Twitter, on Facebook, right? Having a conversation on those platforms is kind of similar to chat. So
Right.
What we want to do is we now wanted to enable a chat conversation that's real and getting serious, trying to get them to come into the store to buy a car or a trade appraisal. We want to flip that into a more intimate conversation. So now we have a fully automated texting solution. So now we can take that chat, get the cell phone number, and start texting back and forth. Now imagine this. Earlier you brought up Craigslist. Okay. Earlier I brought up Vroom and Carvana. They source their vehicles from the public. They have since the dawn. And now more than ever, it's important for dealers to actually do the same. Right. They're masters at it. So what we've done is we're trying to give the tools to the dealerships that are willing to use it, the same ability, right? You might not have $100 million to spend in marketing to bring people into your dealership just to buy their cars. And dealers that there's a lot of dealers that won't buy cars from the public unless it's a trade. That needs to stop, in my opinion. They need to start buying cars right off the street, whether that person wants to buy a car from them or not. You need inventory. Okay. So we can not only look at Craigslist, but we can source vehicles from any source. So OfferUp, Let Go, Auto Trader, eBay, right? Car Guru. There's all of those even have a private party listing area, right? But then you look at like local classified ads. There's one called KSL that's very focused on like Utah, the Mountain West, right? Utah, Idaho, Colorado, Kijiji, that's in Canada. So we can actually find all those private party listings and show you in one dashboard. What's the next thing that we can do? Well, there's cell phone numbers tied to those posts. Okay, what's the next thing that our technology should be able to do? Well, what if we could automate a text to go out to all those private party listings that are selling cars? So now you're not paying somebody $12 an hour that hates their job, right? You're having technology send out a text to people. Now, if you want to get bold, do an instant cash offer. Understand the VIN, look at KBB or Black Book's tool, and understand exactly what you can offer them without being burnt, right? Because you got to be able to start offering a said number before they bring it into the dealership, or they just won't. There's enough dealers that are willing to do that now.
Yeah.
And so get bold. You guys need inventory. Send a text and watch this. As soon as whether you want to put an offer in that text or not, you can just say, hey, see that you're selling your F-150 on Auto Trader or on cars.com, wherever, right? On Craigslist. We'd love to buy it from you. When can you come in? Right. Maybe the next response is, well, how much will you give me? Right. As soon as that person responds to our technology, we will automatically notify the dealership, and then they can pick up the conversation. So, oh, wow, I got a hot one. Somebody wants to know how much I'll buy their F-150 for. Now, we could just do an instant cash offer based off the VIN, run it through an algorithm, and run it through technology again, and say, hey, we know we can give them $18,500 for this and still make money. So eventually we could automate that response and say, hey, we can give you 18.5 for it right now.
How powerful is that? If I'm selling my car and I don't want to go back and forth, then somebody throws out an offer, and everything has a footnote of subject to the usual parameters. But I'll tell you what, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, I was putting numbers on cars over the phone, and you know something? I was generally within a nickel.
Yeah, it happens.
Worth based on the conversation, which now is a text conversation, and that nickel is very easy to deal with.
Yeah.
In today's market, whether it be the customer having a better understanding of what their vehicle is truly worth based on a light that they hadn't put a value on that's been on, that could be $1,000 or whatever the case may be, or a particular scrape that, you can't just buff out this 1-inch dent, but there are ways around it. So that's beautiful.
So dealers more than ever need to source vehicles from the public, need to be willing to make good, strong offers, whether that person's going to buy our car or not. Now, if you start doing that, I promise people that originally was like, hey, I'm not going to buy a car from you. Chances are you're going to turn them. Most of the time when somebody's selling a car, they're going to need to replace it, whether it's now or 6 months down the road. Give them the respect of still being, and so give them the respect of still being a customer of yours by just buying a car, treat them as such, and get their business when they're ready to buy one, right? Earn it. And so we can automate a lot of that, right? It's a lot of that's on a roadmap. A lot of it's already there. We have the texting, we have the automation, but imagine this, we do things differently than even the, Podium just got announced to be worth $3 billion, right? Incredible. I remember how they started out. So there's other platforms too, but we do things very differently. And when people think, oh, texting is texting, it's not. I've done enough research and now built a fully automated texting tool. You can do things drastically different with the technology when using AI and NLP. But also, even if you're not using that to build a texting automation tool, there's some very specific things that you can build to make the user experience. Remember, we talked about Apple. Make the user experience more like Apple than the dentist, right? So how many people get a reminder about the dentist? Most people now do, right?
Multiples, even appointments, even for scheduling next appointments.
That's what I mean, right? So you should easily get that at the dealership. Most CRMs still don't even do that. What we can do is not only can we give you the appointment via text, we can give you turn-by-turn directions through that same text just by a click of the link to Google Maps. We can also make sure that that appointment shows up directly on your calendar before you do anything. So the customer or the lead doesn't even have to add an event to their calendar. We've built the technology so that we already can map that appointment to the calendar that's on their phone, whether it's tied to an email or a number. And the really cool thing that I think really separates us in a lot of ways is with most CRMs, we can write all this stuff in your CRM. So there's no double or triple entry.
That's where it falls apart for most other softwares is it doesn't write and they don't want to take the time.
Yeah, they don't want to take the time. And I know that because I was, at Dealers Talking for 11 years. If they want to live, eat, breathe, sleep in the CRM, and good dealers do. So what we've done is not only been able to push all of that and update all that, we can even ask each dealership differently. Hey, do you want us to be able to edit leads here and have that push to the CRM? Or do you want the location field push? Like all sorts of really cool stuff that before nobody's able to do. But now imagine being able to, when somebody misses an appointment, there's two things on this point. If somebody misses an appointment, they already know they're going to miss it. We send a text to the lead, making sure that they either confirm, reschedule, or decline. When they reply with reschedule with an R, right? Most of the time now the dealership has a whole other couple of steps added to their plate. The BDC now has to spend time chasing that person down, making sure that they know when they can come in, try to get them back on the phone. Okay, well, sorry that tomorrow's not going to work. Yeah, a lot of work, right? So what we've done is we're now giving the power back to the lead. And I won't divulge too much, but basically we give them the ability to reschedule it themselves, right? With some really cool technology that will make sure you're not creating a duplicate appointment and updating everything. Now, next, CRM, garbage in, garbage out. Everybody's heard it, right? And everybody still says it because it's true. With CRM, it's only as good as the data that's in it. Now, if a salesperson doesn't update an appointment as showed, what happens? The BDC agent is very upset because the BDC agent gets they're monetized. Their money is tied to showed appointments, scheduled appointments, right? The salesperson, they get paid on sold cars. So they don't care so much if an appointment shows up. If they sell a car, they care, then they update it, right? What we've done is we've created this really cool integration to be able to do what's called nudge and make sure that each user of the CRM is moving the process along. We are not the CRM. We integrate really well with it now. So we can ask the salesperson, hey, how did your appointment go with Paul Meijer on Saturday? And then the salesperson could be like, oh crap, I better tell the CRM how it went. And then they can update it right from our application and have it be updated in the CRM. So some really cool stuff that is even outside of finding people looking to sell, buy cars or service and parts. There's some really cool stuff that we can help with automation, texting, and CRM.
All right. I want to jump in, kind of take a little detour, but it's all relevant. Okay. I am a big believer in technology, but not as a replacement necessarily for the human being, but as an added value to the human being. We can't make all of the phone calls. We can't look up all of the classifieds. We just can't physically do it, and we won't do it. That's the reality of it. So we can leverage technology. As a smaller store, okay, we're all in fear of the Carvanas and the CarMaxes and all these big companies because they've got their shit together. There's no question about it. But I'm going to give you a little point here, okay? I'm going to relay an experience that was had with a major player, okay? So if you're in a dealership, listen up because this will benefit you. Don't think necessarily that all of these big companies have it all figured out because there are breakdowns in those big companies also. How some of these big companies sell as many cars as they do, based on the experience that I had recently, it boggles the mind, but it does happen. So here's what happened. So my friend bought a car, okay, a dealership shall remain nameless, but a large player. In July, they took this car in on trade. They did a recon. They determined there was a faulty rear differential and they put a used differential in. In November, I know the person that purchased that car. When they went in, they liked the car. They complained about a noise. Oh, it's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. Okay. They took delivery in November. In January, the noise is still there. It's like, you know what? There's something not right here. Bring it in. Said garage says, oh, there's a hole in the muffler. They sublet a muffler repair, tell the customer, no, everything's all set. There's no problem here. We hear the noise that you're talking about, but it's nothing to worry about. I wouldn't be overly concerned. So that's in January. October, this person comes over to my house and they're pulling into a parking space. I'm like, oh my God, what is that god awful noise coming from the rear end of your car? The person says, you hear that? Yeah, clear as day, I hear that. Well, this is the noise I've been complaining about, but the dealer has told me there's nothing wrong with it. Don't worry about it. No. There's definitely something wrong with it. As a matter of fact, I want you to take it to another licensed garage to get it checked out. Brought it to the other garage. The other garage determines Guess what? It was a faulty rear differential.
No, man.
And based on the condition that it's in, you probably shouldn't drive it. It was pretty scary loud when I heard it. All right.
Well,
So now I call this big company. First of all, you have to listen to 2 large pre-recordings of them trying to sell you stuff before you can even hit the O for operator. Then when you hit the O for operator, guess what? This company's so big, they don't even know who works there.
yeah.
So now you're asking for a particular person in a particular capacity. They, A, don't know who the person is. B, they're not even familiar with the terminology of what that job function is.
User experience.
Waiting on hold, on hold, on hold. Now, sorry, that person not available. They'll have to call you back. Oh, through that phone call, 8 minutes into it, the phone call drops. So now you've got to call back, go through the double menu again before you hit operator. But this time, guess where it rings? Not at the store. It rings in another state in a call center somewhere where that person also doesn't know anybody at the store, any of the job functions, anything. They even gave out the wrong information about who the person was that I wanted to speak to at the store. Make a long story short, it was about 45 minutes worth of wasted time on the call. Now we're engaged in conversation. But even when the follow-up person from that big company called me, it was clear that they didn't look at any of the data that I sent via email so that they knew it's documented, it was covered under warranty, it was complained for within the term of the warranty that was blown off, and now months later says, oh, well, it's out of warranty. No. Clearly you haven't seen the documentation that I sent. So why don't you take a look at that, and then we'll have a conversation next week. So if you're a dealer, where you have a leg up on some of these big companies is that you can provide a level of customer service that some of these big companies don't, and you can game your results by leveraging the available technologies. So let me just jump to a couple of comments here because Orlando commented way long time ago. Sorry, Orlando. He says, that is amazing. He's referring to regarding the inner thoughts and having conversations around our inner thoughts. I just finished a book called 3 Laws of Performance that speaks about this very same thing. He was talking about before they even verbalize it, they're thinking about it and they're doing the research.
Well, and that's the thing. Most advertised companies and most people are like, oh man, if you could listen to the conversation like the phone can and then advertise to them. This is a precursor, guys. Like this is before that, right? And a lot of people don't know that because there's now these new catchphrases and new shiny things about listening to conversations and then advertising to them. It's actually far better if you can get them doing their research on the conversation they're about to have because you're hitting them up before they ever submit a lead, before they ever even get there. So thank you, Orlando, for pointing that out. Great book, by the way.
Mark Williamson says many dealers refuse to pursue perfect public purchases. It's like it's outside of their comfort zone. Get comfortable if you are to be successful. And he says, Paul, they kick the can down the road, hoping someone else would pick it up. Well, guess what? We want a new differential because it was documented within the time that they had the opportunity to fix it. It should have never left the shop with that noise. They knew it was bad when they replaced it with a used one. Clearly, the second one was bad because if a customer hears the noise, we as automotive professionals, we also heard that noise.
So I would love to maybe even share something and kind of give a use case, right? And maybe even a testimonial on some of the product of Social Mining AI and show people that are watching the show that this isn't just a concept, right? This is working today. And so I'd love to show that, maybe present it.
Yeah, let's do it. Listen, folks, we're probably going to go a little over. So just to let you know, because there's some real gold that we're mining for here, pun intended.
All right. So you tell me when it's going
to bring it up.
Yeah. Are we good?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll try to breeze through this because we've talked about it, but ways that we help find buyers and sell them cars, far more than just that though, right? We're looking at, not just purchase intent, but also for service and parts, and then people that are listing cars. But, like I said, 30,000 online sources looking for intent. So you'll see posts. This one's here on obviously on Facebook. And so I'm just going to breeze through these slides, but we look at social media, online forums, automotive news sites, enthusiast sites, brand community sites, different marketplaces. Here's some brands that you'll recognize. Then we have an engagement console, right? Where you can filter through them and then hit a button to respond. And then we can do now marketing automation through SMS, nurturing campaigns.
Hold on a second. To that point, you want to share? You're on the West Coast.
Yeah, I'll share that.
Yeah,
It's actually on these slides. So, real quick, obviously we do have that patent that I'd mentioned. We're going for a couple more that we think we're really close to. We're broadening this patent to extend past even purchase intent, just to say intent. You can see some cool filters here. So we can filter by location, sources, and then we can add keywords. So we can say, hey, we want every single keyword to be part of a post, or at least one of these keywords to be part of a post, or just filter for buy car in a specific area. So you can go by city or state, and then you can add what sources that you want. If you don't add any sources, it'll just default to all of them. Then you can look at a date range, whether it's, the last day, the last week, the last month, and then you can even choose a make or model too. So here's some NLP models. But this is kind of shows you some of the engagement, right? So you see a post, use our product, you engage in the post right from here, you can respond to it, and then it will automatically go straight to the source that we found it on. And then you can carry on the conversation after that, all within Social Mining AI. We have integrations with the major CRMs like eLead, DealerSocket, Vin Solutions. And now we're actually working on Salesforce. And I can get into that because I think there's a real need for Salesforce integrations, and dealers need to start looking at Salesforce for CRM. Believe it or not, I never thought I'd say that, but they're doing some really cool stuff.
Love Salesforce, by the way.
They're starting to do some really cool stuff in automotive. There's a company that I know. So if anybody's, really wanted to look at it, let me know. I can help. But here's the experience, I think, Paul, that you were mentioning. So I'm over here on the West Coast in Washington State, right, at the time. And I decided to go on our platform and just search, for buy car posts. And then I did add lease as a keyword. So then this post shows up, right? There was over 10,000 posts, but this is the one I decided. It was the very top post, and I hit respond, and I decided to respond, and I'll show you my response and everything. But instead of reading this whole post to you, you'll get the idea. Somebody is in love with the Tucson hybrid, right? And they've gone to two dealerships, talked to two dealerships in their area. One's charging $5,000 over MSRP. The other's charging $49.95 over MSRP. With taxes, it brought it to $48,000. For that vehicle, they felt it was way too much. I know demand is high, supply is low, but is anybody getting the dealer to knock off the markup price at all? Paying MSRP is bad enough. Obviously, every customer feels this way. You can debate the customer, but it's not going to help you because every person feels this way. Every person that's trying to buy a car already thinks there's a massive markup on MSRP. Let's face it. That's just what we're faced with, right? So
hold on. Let me jump in just real quickly here.
Yeah.
This is a forum.
Yeah.
In Reddit.
Yep.
On Hyundai.
Yep.
Okay?
Yep.
Now, if I'm a store, and I've been around for a few years, I'm going to have what? 10, 15,000 names in my database?
Yep.
Okay. If you look towards the bottom right, you'll see there are 25,100 members.
You're right.
In just one group. Just one.
Yeah, just one. You're right. And 128 of them at that exact moment were online, part of the able to respond to these posts in real time. Okay.
Yeah.
So great point. She goes on to say that her and her husband, they were working from home. So they sold one of their cars. This is everybody's situation. My wife and I did it too, right? Why pay on a car note when you're not driving cars anymore? Well, now they're both going back to work. They need a second car, right? So I decide to simply respond and ask right here, Silly City, believe it or not, that was my user handle in Reddit. I said, where do you live? I've seen some, but it depends on your market. So sorry, I know it's small, but that's what I said. She responded right away and said, I live in Maryland, suburbs of DC. So she then asked me, well, why? Where do you live? And I responded, right now I'm in Washington State. However, I can ask around for you and see what I find. This is literally what I did, Paul. All I did was go to Google, search Hyundai dealer in Maryland. I put suburbs of DC. And then a dealership, which I'm not going to name, but if you really look close, you'll see it. That dealership pulled up. So I decided to call the dealership. Maybe I lucked out, but I called the dealership, asked for a sales manager. I got a hold of the sales manager, and imagine trying to explain this conversation. But I first just started out by, do you have any Tucsons on the lot? I knew he didn't. He said, no. When can you get one in? By the end of November. Okay. She had already mentioned she didn't want to wait more than a month. So this is going to be about 6 weeks. But I said, well, what are you selling it for? Over MSRP or what? He responded with, we're selling it as sticker, just MSRP. I said, no markup. He responded and said, no. So in this phone conversation, I then tried to explain to him who I was, why I was trying to, call him and do this. And he goes, oh, we don't pay bird dog fees. We're not paying commissions for people. If they want to buy the car, tell them to call me. And I was like, I'm not trying to make a commission on a car deal here. And then I tried to explain the technology that we've built. I just wanted to follow along the trail of what a customer of mine, a dealership, would go through to sell a car, right? That's it. So he was taken back, kind of confused, but gave me his name and his email. And a direct line. So I then reached back out on Reddit and I said, she did respond to me when I said, I'll look around. She said, that would be awesome. Thank you. And then I then direct messaged her, and I'll show you that. But then later she didn't respond with the direct message right away. So I asked her here, hey, Toki, did you get my direct message? I think I can help. Next slide. Here's our direct message conversation. Hey, just spoke to a dealer that would have one at the end of November. I believe I can get them to do it without any markup. Can you order it through them and wait that long? I realize you said you can't wait more than a month, but honestly, saving $5,000 might be worth it. Then she responds, where's the dealer located? Maryland. I happen to know the sales manager there. I've worked in the automotive space for 15 years, selling technology to dealers across the country, so I usually have connections. What part of Maryland? Like what county? I think we can stretch it until the end of November. I'll chat with my husband. Thanks. Okay. So then I go on to say who I'm speaking with. He said most of them are spoken for, but communicate with them quickly and they can potentially have one by the end of November. If the dealer's in the Waldorf area, isn't that close to you? If not, I can keep looking through my contacts. Let me know if you're interested. I can make sure that he expects a call and ask for him directly. So that you don't get the runaround. Would you like me to give you his name and number, right? Or just the dealership contact information? Sorry. Then she says, Waldorf is reasonable distance away. That won't be a problem. Then mentions the guy's name, says is okay with. So this guy's really okay with letting one go for MSRP. That's awesome. If you could give me his contact information, email, and number, I'd greatly appreciate it. Thank you so much. All right. So then I give it to her. Then she emails him. I asked her to CC me. She emails him and CCs me saying, hey, I'm interested in the aforementioned vehicle. Thankfully, Mr. Cooper's connected us and informed me that you're willing to sell the car at MSRP. Do you or will you have any in stock with gray interior? I look forward to hearing from you. She ordered the car that day, right? Like here's the vehicle, 2022 Hyundai Tucson hybrid limited trim. This is the product in action. It took me less than 15 minutes to connect a dealer that's all the way over on the East Coast with somebody that was right up the street from him complaining about markups when they themselves were not marking them up.
Now, important points to consider here is he knew the sales manager after he had reached out to the store. That's when he met over the phone the sales manager, and from that moment on, he knew the sales manager. So when he communicated that to the customer, that was in fact true. Another point to consider is at the store level. Now, I'm not going to say ego ever jumps into the picture in the car business because, yeah, I mean, I've heard it rumored, but I don't know if it's actually true or not. But in communication, you communicate either to understand or to reply. And more often than not, at the dealer level, the person at the dealership is merely listening for those trigger words to associate with another event so that they can discount it off the bat. Here's Greg on the West Coast of the United States calling a dealer that he didn't know initially on the East Coast to send him that customer, that dealership, a customer that was ready, willing, and able to buy a car from them. Rather than listen to what Greg had to say and respond in a positive way, hey, thank you very much. At no time did Greg say, hey, I'm looking for a bird dog, and then I will give you. No, Greg said, I have a customer that's interested in purchasing this car from you. So rather than, Greg, thank you very much. You know, maybe a couple of questions. How did you find us? Or how did this come to be? No, we don't pay bird dogs. Nobody ever mentioned bird dogs. Why have an argument on something that doesn't exist, right?
Yeah.
Listen to the customer. We have the ability to better service the clients by listening to what the client has to say. In this instance, Greg was an extension of the client wanting to purchase the car because he was acting on their behalf as a free agent to bring this dealership business. And that's one easy scenario. There are 25,100 people in that one group. How many brands of cars are there out there? There's what?
Yeah, no, you're right.
3 million people in the US?
Yes, and I'm telling you, there's a channel for every brand, not only brand. That was a Hyundai channel. There's a Tucson channel too, right? We scraped that too. There's very specific channels for not just the OEM level, right? But the actual models of vehicles, right?
There's only one source. There are thousands of sources, but he found one that was hot and ready to go, and there were so many more.
Yeah. There's a lot of them like that, and I'll show you the application. If people want to see it, I can hit present and show the application here in a minute, where we can filter through the data, and I can show you real like. But you know, I think it's very exciting. We're still a small company, but we do so much. If dealers really understood exactly what we can do for them, and not only do they adopt and start using it, this is exactly where dealers need to start embrace the culture change and the user experience difference, right? People don't want to come to the dentist, okay? But if the dentist says, hey, I've got some laughing gas, and when you leave, I got a prescription for you, and guess what? You don't even have to get a cleaning, just stop by. Much different experience. All of a sudden, people, they don't mind the dentist anymore. So, you know, the fact is, guys, like you made a comment about these big gorillas, right? Like the 900-pound gorillas, like Vroom and Carvana, and, you know, we have to fight them. The truth is, somebody said it incredibly well on LinkedIn. I believe it was Brian. He had mentioned that over at Toyota, Germain Toyota, I think, Paul, sorry, I didn't want to. Yeah, exactly. He mentioned something on LinkedIn that got me really pumped, and I think it was even today or yesterday. He had said something about the fact that it's not what everyone thinks, where the big is going to swallow the small. It's the fast is going to beat the slow, right? And here's to your point, Paul, and definitely something that I feel now as a startup in a smaller company. Being this small actually gives us far more advantages than a big company. I've been on the Titanic, guys. It sinks, right? Like everybody knows that story. Why? Because it can't turn quick enough. We are in an ever-changing market right now. We are in an ever-changing world with COVID and the climates and everything that's going on.
Yep.
The smaller you are, the faster you can be.
Agile.
Right? And if you can be nimble right now, you're going to outlast. You're going to thrive. And our product helps you do that. Our product helps you be nimble and fast and efficient. And look, there's no rainbows and daisies here. There's still work. There's still a long road for us to go down. But we have to work together as a community to actually get there and be able to play ball with these big behemoths that are coming and breathing down the neck of the dealers that I love, right? Like Apple. So, but yeah, I can show an application real quick, maybe take a little bit of time there, and then I will share. I will share one thing about life events. So I think in the last conversation we were talking about social mining and data mining, right? Yeah. And data mining has been this thing that has been around now for 10 years, but it's never evolved. It's the same thing, just like online reviews hasn't evolved. People have made it easier to kind of game it, and people are catching on, which is why people are now going to Facebook community groups, Reddit, and Twitter to understand what a business is like. But yes, so then instead of mining your DMS data, I highly suggest mining your customer data, finding somebody that can append social media handles, which we have a relationship to be able to do so, looking at the posts that are public. They're not private, so these people know that they're posting on public forums, and it's not creepy when you actually engage. But we can show you live events of your customers. We can even show you live events of prospects in your area. So if somebody has a daughter turning 16, chances are, hey, maybe they want to buy her a car. If somebody's having their third baby, chances are it's time for a minivan, right? If somebody graduates or gets promoted, congratulate them. You don't have to sell them something just because of a life event. It could be a trigger, but if you congratulate somebody for an event in their life that's big, I promise they think about you, right? The next time their mom, yeah, exactly. The next time their mom needs to buy a car, or their friend's going to buy a car, and you're the Ford dealer that they're already looking to buy an F-150, I promise your name's going to get mentioned. And they're going to say, man, this Ford dealer congratulated me for graduating. Took me 8 years to do it. Thought it was really cool. Awesome dealership. You should work with them. Right.
And they didn't, it wasn't like you reached out to sell them something. You congratulated them on a life event. You now become a part of their community.
Yes. You're absolutely right. Let me do this here. All right. I'm sharing it. Tell me when you've pulled it up. All right, so can you see my screen, Paul?
We're there.
Okay, so you can see lease here under keyword.
Yeah.
All right, perfect. I just want to make sure I'm sharing the right tab. So before, I just quickly came here to manage filters. I added Facebook groups, forums, Facebook Marketplace, and Reddit. I didn't add Twitter or anything like that. I'm not trying to get fancy. I put in keywords. So you can, it doesn't even have to be a word. It could be MFRV terms, right? Lease, put in the location of just New Jersey. And then it automatically will upload those for us in real time. Then it'll show us all the posts that have those keywords or have anything to do with lease. So, here's somebody asking, is there an available 39/10 term? What's the MFRV and incentives on the Hyundai Kona EV lease, right? And here's their zip code. We already know, like here's the one in South Orange, New Jersey for a Chevy Traverse. What's the lease rates and residuals on this thing on a 22 with the Premier trim, right? So some pretty interesting posts. If I was a dealer, here's Bimmer posts. I talked about that earlier. Somebody, anyone looking to give up their lease on a 440i. So here's somebody that literally went to a Bimmer post for the X3. So there's posts on everything. I'm telling you guys, there's forums and channels. And this person's asking, I know people are going through a tough time right now. I want to pick up a lease. Maybe don't want to get a brand new lease. Anybody want to give their lease up? They're going to even their posts to buy cars and lease cars or their channels to see if somebody has one. I mean, if I'm a dealer in New Jersey that has this vehicle for lease, obviously I want to respond, click respond to it, go straight to the post, copy response and go to it. And then it would be in my conversations tab. And now we can carry on the rest of the conversations from there. So some really cool stuff, guys. I can filter buy car, sell car.
Let me jump in here for a second. Okay.
Yeah.
We've all been at the stores or we're given the list, call these people. Of all the people that you called, a small percentage of them maybe are interested. Okay. What we're looking at here, as the other person put it, truly is the holy grail.
Yeah.
This is an unlimited, and it bears repeating, unlimited amount of customers. I'm not going to say leads. These are customers. They're telling you, I am a customer looking to purchase. I'm looking for these terms. I'm looking to assume a lease. I'm looking for, I want to buy this. I want to buy that. Unlimited. Okay. And now, we've become a global business. We're not just car dealers in Fairfield, Connecticut. No, we're an automotive retailer on the global market. We shipped 10, 15 years ago, I was shipping cars across the country and overseas. Today, it's more commonplace than ever. You have literally the most unbelievable pool of customers sitting there waiting for you to cast your line into and pull something out of the water. Literally.
It's true. It's true. This is our engagements piece. It's our automated texting platform. You don't even have to be using our prospecting aspect of Social Mining AI. This can stand on its own and just be turned on. So if you're worried that your salespeople won't use something, like most dealers, I pay for technology, they're not even going to use it. Great. This is NLP AI. We can automate a lot of our texting campaigns. And really get you guys some engagement, right? That's why we call it engagements. So we can have all your leads funneled straight through Social Mining AI. If I came to Lead Center, we can filter your leads better than your CRM in most occasions. So I can filter by source. Right here, there's a blue and red tab for vehicle. Blue, this person's looking to buy that car. Red, that person's already bought that car from me. So we'll even be able to show you if a lead comes in, and even in our platform, hey, this person already owns an F-150 because they bought it from you. We have that data. I can filter by source and say, hey, I only want to look at my KBB ICO lead. I only want to look at Auto Trader. And we can start a text campaign and fully automate it, right? So I can do by status, right? Active, waiting for dealer response, active, new leads. But let's say I just click on all these leads. Let's say I want to do a campaign for all new leads, right? I can title it. Gotta be quick here. All I have to do, guys, is just add a message. We can do templates. We have a library of templates that we can access. And then you can type in what you want as the message. This message will go out 1 minute after the lead comes in. You hit save, and then you can just build this out, right? And we can put it on repeat, so you don't have to build it out indefinitely, but I can add a second, third, fourth, fifth message, whatever I want, and then create a campaign that way. We can get very granular, very specific, and send specific text to specific people all at the right time. Once they engage, if I come to a campaign, I can see all the data within it. Once they engage, we have Activity Center where you can be texting back and forth, and you can do this all from your phone, not just in our application, but a lot of salespeople will actually text, because when they get a text from our platform, they don't even have to log into Social Mining AI. They can text just like they would their significant other from their phone, and it will feed back into the application. There's some really cool stuff here, but I'm not going to get too much into it any further. I want to maybe save a chance for dealers that really want to see what we've got and how we can help, to set up a presentation with me. I'd love to do it.
Incredible. Joe Duran says this is incredible and it bears repeating. Matter of fact, it does more than that. I'm going to put it right on the screen. This is incredible.
Yeah,
seriously,
thank you, Joe. Thank you.
Unlimited customers ready to buy. All you need to do is flip the switch and start making money.
All we have to do, guys, what you should use this for is to help you find inventory right now, right? And let us automate some texts and appointment confirmations and make it simple for people to know, when their appointment is, and for your salespeople to update the CRM so that the BDC agent isn't upset. And there's just so much we can do. Give me a chance to do a presentation for you, and I promise you haven't seen anything but the surface here on these calls. So absolutely appreciate the time, Paul. You're a stud. Love what you're doing with Dealer Vendor Match. Want to do nothing but promote what you're doing, because I think dealers need people like you in our industry to keep vendors and dealers honest and together and unified. Any dealer that has any question about a vendor, I know most of what they do and their technology, and they're good, bad, and uglies. That's what I spent 11 years trying to teach myself. When I was selling Dealer Socket had every product under the sun. So I got to know every product under the sun as far as my competitors as best that I could.
Greg and I are going to be working on something specifically in that space, which is going to be right on the website. So when dealers sign up for your free account on dealervendormatch.com, there'll be more details on that added value.
Yeah, I think Paul's going to serve an incredible purpose that has been needed to be filled a long time. So I think already does, but some pretty cool stuff that I know he's working on. So thank you, Paul.
Always improving, continuous improvement. Thank you. You're going to see Greg's profile on dealervendormatch.com very soon. We're just in the process of putting it together. So I want to thank everybody for tuning in. I appreciate your support every week. If you see value in what we talked about, or if there's anyone in your automotive community that will benefit from this information, please share this broadcast. So have a safe and successful week coming up, and we'll see you next week on Sunday Night Live.
Mark, thank you.